Woo! Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Mish-Mashing Battle Lounge with the 2MK team. It is May and it has been a really long time since you have seen me play this game. But we are changing up our content, we are changing up our timings, and you are going to be seeing a lot more of that. So welcome to the new year of 2MK. This continues to be an East Coast sort of Atlantic Rim style lobby. So if you're from any of those places or have really good internet and you're in the Midwest or further into Europe, you can join in and see what you get in terms of connection to various people. I am all jittery, and I am jittery because it really has been quite long. But I don't expect there to be too many problems with this, given that I'm going to be starting off against well-known opponents. Particularly a matchup that both Amar and I know quite well. I'm also practicing playing from way closer to the screen than my usual. Which should be fine. Fortunately, this isn't one of those places where I'm going to lose a lot in that regard. So I just gotta find a comfortable position while Mara and I warm up. You can feel free to join in, as I mentioned, but I'm gonna be a little slow today, and she might too. Fortunately, when you've gotten good enough at this game, at least your own personal way of playing it, it's pretty easy to just move. And you only really have to worry when your opponents start to think through everything you're doing. But in our case, we're so relatively used to each other that that's not likely to be the problem. Did not confirm that, because I did not think it was going to hit her. And of course I still have to work on that. But it has not triggered my heart racing feeling. I am managing to keep my nerves of steel here. But I did specifically request her to be my opponent today for precisely that reason. Just to get started without that feeling of, what am I doing again? This matchup is pretty easy on both ends, because they both have basically the full range of their options. Chun-Li does not have the range to shut down Abigail's movement, but she does have enough with punishing capability to do things like that. And of course, being used to each other really helps. Both these characters got very minor nerfs in the last patch. Haven't even played since the last patch. But nothing that really affects our styles of play as far as I'm aware. I might get a little less use out of her crouch heavy punch, but I'm not absolutely sure that will be better or worse. Oh no, I have not practiced insta air legs in forever. That was less than instant. And that was 3 hits. But I also have some news about what we'll be doing going forward. One of the things we plan to do is to just play a lot more, mostly me, playing different games altogether. So we're going to be back to that time where you see lots of different things from us. Our new stream time will be shorter in that we will only be running from 7:30 to 8:30 Eastern on all weekdays except Friday. I can't say necessarily that we will not have a stream on Friday, but it will not be a lounge on a Friday. If there is content on Friday, it will almost certainly be something related to bots or some analysis that we might be doing. I don't expect that to come up a lot. But chances are you might see some loungers from some other members occasionally. But the local in this area is on Fridays, and I'm probably going to be going to that more often too. So, we'll see if we can get into full swing back to lots and lots of work. Not necessarily in terms of purely trying to level up in the way we were previously doing, because there's only so much you can do if you are a relatively casual player. If you can't devote 3 to 4 hours a day to the game, you have to rely on your capacity to understand the game, and that's what we've always been working toward. Now moving on to a battle against our Nakali. This matchup is a little bit difficult lately, and it might actually be changed by how that button works now. This is one of the ones that might actually matter. Mistimed that one. Perfect spacing by me, as I've said. I'm definitely still too aggressive against that move. The good part about it is that Chili actually has a lot of solutions to it, but I just don't like to use them. Mainly because I don't want to discourage the wolf from trying that move in this matchup. It's more so that the goal of the move has to be different, and you have to watch out for a lot more things. But if you're spaced really, really well, that sort of thing happens to you, and I don't really want that to be like a big discouraging point. But it is good to fight against team members, people who are trying specific things, who are looking for ways to deal with situations, because I'm too used to fighting what I call mice. People who basically, once they realize, I don't know how to deal with this situation, I'm just going to run away from it. And I complain about this all the time. I thought I baited that. Oh, that's more useful technically. Because now, before I'm not sure you could stop blocking between the two hits of that move, but now apparently you can try to hit a button.
You win.
And knowing what the wolf would have tended to hit there, I think that means she just wins. There's not much you can do after that, particularly if your spacing's not perfect. She'll just have to use Light Punch, I think, and maybe get little or nothing out of that. But if you play Chun-Li for long enough, you do spend a lot of time realizing when you should necessarily go for pressure, and when you can do more things simply because your opponent knows your plus. That sort of situation, actually. Go for the deepest possible one. There we go.
Round 2.
Of course, I can't blame the people that I consider mice too much, because it's really hard to stop me from doing things I want to do. That move being basically plus now is kind of helpful as well. For some reason it went through my head, you can't catch me, I'm the gingerbread man. She doesn't look like gingerbread at all. Although I should maybe like win Capcom Cup so I can put her in a really weird gingerbread costume based off just this string. No, I would never do that to everyone. If I win Capcom Cup, I'm definitely getting a different person a costume. Alright, Mr. One Bar Jet Fighter. I don't know why you're here, but one bar doesn't always mean that. But it looks like they're off for the time being. So, let's keep on going. One of the main limitations we're going to be facing in the coming days with the new stream concept and new stream schedule is the fact that it's like a lightning round. If a lounge gets too big, with only 1 hour of playtime, you might not actually end up playing much at all. But this isn't really an incentive to stay at the top, because we are definitely going to be working more on learning specific things. And of course to try to provide content that helps other people learn specific things. So, now that we're on to the second run of this matchup, I'll probably talk about it some more. All those options I mentioned before. Chun-Li can normally keep other people out with long buttons, but as you've just seen demonstrated, Abigail can be hit by them, but doesn't always care. He also has types of pushback that tend to make it difficult for her to do much. And a lot of time is spent repositioning so that the anti-airs don't work correctly. She has a very floaty jump though. In some parts of the matchup it's terrible for what she's trying to do, and in other parts it's really good. Basically, the fact that Abigail can run, and once he does get that situation, react with certain things, it really helps. But he is still susceptible to things that his buttons aren't fast enough to react to. So both of us are constantly watching our spacing and adjusting really quickly to minute things that are happening, from the perspective of, will this move even work? I should have done that without the meter, but then again, it's Abigail, he'll just live through it anyway. And I'm always surprised that his backwalk speed makes that possible. There are definitely characters that cannot get away from you when that happens, but interestingly, Abigail is not one of them. Basically because Abigail can often just go into his run stance and run through Chun-Li attacks, and because her jump is so floaty, and she doesn't really have a lot of other things to cover that space, Abigail gets to run in this matchup fairly often. But the precise thing you're trying to do when you run constantly changes. It's quite hard to get everything right. Playing footsies with her therefore is not necessarily the best idea or required. You're just watching spaces, and then that will happen. But you have to learn the tendency of the other player. My tendency is usually such that hitting throw is better, but not always. At this range, Chun-Li can throw fireballs, but what she really wants to do is stop Abigail from hitting buttons so that she can do that. This is her longest range move and is therefore probably the most useful thing you can do with your time. Abigail in turn can, at the same range, use his down forward heavy kick to roll toward her, and the interactions between those two moves can be kind of frustrating for both sides. because you can never really tell for sure what's going to happen. This is probably worth it. It's worth it for a specific thing that happens afterwards. Oh no, I missed it. Not really sure it was possible from there.
You win.
One of Chun-Li's greatest strengths is that using her instant head stomp against most characters' wake-up super and even some people's uppercuts will send her sailing over the move, and since so many of those moves have such incredibly long recovery frames, she will normally land and be able to do whatever she wants. Your opponent can't jump out and they can't throw you, making it even more complicated. What on earth is it? See, I've not played this game in so long, I literally forgot how to confirm matches. What game is it where I hit X to do this? And as always, since it's just us team for the time being, you get to see stages other than the grid. Which is generally a plus. At least for me, I definitely appreciate it. I still have not decided whether I care or believe in anything related to it being particularly better or worse. But I'm glad to have backgrounds that aren't squares.
Fight.
I am not sure that uppercut was the correct uppercut anyway. One of the main things you have to learn fairly early, at least in this matchup, is don't be scared of that move. That you can be very scared of. The floaty jump problem comes in once again.
Round 2. Fight.
The footsies works out pretty well for Chun-Li here, but only if you really know the timings for everything. Because once the Kali starts hitting buttons, he is a good shield wall style character. He can stop you from doing a ton of things. Should have gone for medium, I think. Okay, that one got the blood pumping a little bit, but that might not have been for the usual reason. Like most players, I do get frustrated when I intend to do one thing and don't do it. It's similar to when you've misjudged a timing or a spacing, or something you remember working doesn't work. That, for example, is a big deal to me because now I was definitely going for this, but it didn't work. If you weren't aware, you can generally use her spinning bird kick as a whiff punish because it is actually 9 frames and is definitely fast enough to do a lot of stuff. You just have to be willing to risk raw E SBK neutral. That spacing was very good. And that turtle tech was even better. But that was enough time to get through there, and you get used to that sort of thing over time. My body literally did that move before I even realized what was happening. It's like, okay, time to do ES Kikoken, and literally now I'm thinking to myself, really? That's a thing that works? I remember this now, but I'm glad that my battle instinct, muscle memory, can do these things. I'm not sure if I fudged that one or not. Gotta get the stun up. Get the stun up again. And auto-corrected side. That was a little bit glitchy at the end, but I'll blame it on the stage, yeah. It's my fault for not playing the grid. I don't usually mind these things because it tempers you for when you are playing offline, and, well, you usually need to warm up offline, but what's the joke that you get forged in the lag?
Round one.
Don't take me too seriously, people. You can really get messed up that way. Another thing I spend a lot of time learning is when to not continue a combo. Like, that didn't work, it's time to not try anything there. These jumps are pretty good because she doesn't actually have the capacity to handle that spacing anymore. And I missed the confirm, but I don't think it would have been a good time for that confirm anyway. It was better for a placing I actually needed it.
Round two. Fight.
One of the useful things I find that's going to bite me later is that the speed I fight at causes most players to not be able to use their V-triggers. They're usually not ready to confirm into them, and otherwise it's just a lot of, okay, too much stuff is going on for me to think about using this move right. That does work that way. But she is not a character you can protect yourself from using buttons most of the time. Too many relatively easy whiff punishes. And I've never used her heavy punch as that style of poke to begin with, so whatever changes they made to it yet again, it was really overpowered in Season 1, but there were a lot of things that were. Alright then, we now have NBK5 Nat is back, although their connection doesn't seem to be great either, and Jet Fitter. We will see if the one bar is an illusion or not. I don't remember from their name, but I'm definitely not even going to consider getting any Colleen practice on Ken if it is one bar, because Ken is actually one of the strongest characters in that regard. He's too good at deciding whether or not to use a high, a mid, an overhead style move. You don't get anywhere. Since, as far as I remember, I was literally thinking about it today, uppercuts At some point an uppercut becomes a move you have to counter with heavy, and it's just, no, I'm not doing any of this. Alright, I can see a bit. I can see some movement. I can see the jumps. I never tech throws, so that one's irrelevant. And there's that long zoning jump that I always have to deal with. I have learned, however, to deal with that particular mix-up. To know when Ken is going to not actually cross over your head. That one's going to be a problem. Strange choice, though. Oof! That one was definitely actually the lag for once. And so was that. However, these are not things that I consider overly rough. It is not preferable, but it's not that rough. That one is going to be hard if they keep doing that, because there's no way to tell whether or not what he actually did was a jump or not. So no, it appears that my opponent has kind of switched to the style that the lag benefits from, which is really bad. I'm not saying they're doing it on purpose, but it's not great to have to deal with. I think that confirm was actually a confirm for once. So they should be cornered now. Aw, I could not see it in time, therefore no. Alright, Jet Fitter, I request that if you're watching this, that we not do that again. Because that does in fact cause the same sort of reaction in my heart, in my body. But I'm not going to not take the fight from my end, because that just puts them to fight someone else. So I'm going to have to try to win it. It's not that it's terribly difficult to do in the other sense. But there are Ken tactics that you basically can't counter if you can't see them. So you're spending a lot of time, in my case for example, working purely off of my gaming style knowledge. Like, I know my opponent wants to do this at this spacing, I know my opponent has to spend this meter to do this thing. That, for example. But at the end of the day, you're still going to run into the situation where you're too close to Ken to deal with the problem, and you can't deal with the cross-up. So, technically my best bet is to stay out of that situation as much as possible. Be confusing, and go for the anti-air. Unfortunately, you're not going to get many of the anti-airs out of it. Because doing them correctly is simply understanding things that can't easily be understood. That, on the other hand, I know how to do. I'm always surprised that that works, but I believe it's because it moves her hurt box up, and therefore it doesn't matter what Ken does. Okay, they have no meter for once. And that's that, I think. Nope. Dropped it. Fortunately, they're still cornered, which means that part will work. Oh, I'm so glad that they got this stage now that I think about it. Because that kind of suits.
You win.
Win 10 battle launch matches clear. Wait, already? Oh right, because it counts in the other way, okay. Well, yes, that has made me somewhat jumpy, somewhat on edge. Not necessarily in the good way. I can't really judge my opponent's play because at the end of the day, there's no way to know if the lag was the thing they were counting on or just a thing that did well for them. Because Because you can't tell Ken players, no, don't cross up because it's laggy. You've taken away like a large part of what they're able to do. Particularly against characters like mine who can't necessarily get out of the situation. I was looking forward to a proper buff to Renkiko, but it isn't a buff in the way that most people would think about it. It's actually a 25% increase in the length of the status. And the only time this makes a difference in real matches is if you've already got your opponent cornered and you confirmed into the V trigger. But doing this usually means you've lost out on damage, and because so much of my style of confirming into that V trigger happens in neutral, there's just no way for me to benefit much from it. Still, I am glad because it does help some people, for sure. And I don't really mind continuing to be the way I have always been playing. I think this is a yes. I would have gone for the throw, but never ever count on that for Abigail. You do not know if you're just going to die because, oh yes! You underestimated my power. I mistimed that, but it was still good. See? Always the tools are still there. My opponent has learned not to charge that move, mainly because you can just throw Abigail out of it, and our bots allow you to practice this a lot. Went for the throw that time, which is blatantly correct given everything else I've been doing so far. And got the perfect spacing on that so that my punish would not work out. Oof. I could have confirmed that one too. Not even someone who is as good as defense as Amara can know which side Chun-Li is going to be on in that situation. Sometimes I kick things and sometimes I kick things more.
You win.
We spend a lot of time in this match in pseudo-neutral. Going in off the knockdowns we get is usually not a good idea. But that is because we both learned to not play toward the opponent's strengths in that form. Basically, we both have to use meter to get a knockdown that actually leads to pressure. But we've definitely seen this go the other way. One of Amara's first opponents at Combo Breaker, the last Combo Breaker we actually got to go to, was in fact a Chun-Li, and I got to watch them play and basically told her, no, you don't really have to care, just do what you were doing against me. Because it's not even a matter of not knowing the matchup, you have to be daring with Chun-Li to beat most Abigail players. Because he simply can convert too much into damage and doesn't care about your obvious primary strength. So if you depend on the secondary ones, and you're willing to do more things that aren't necessarily a great idea, like that, you'll probably survive better. But meter leads to actual wake-up damage. Should have done that the other way. Doesn't hit. Being able to use things to get out of that position as well really help. I flinched.
Looks like I've got more horsepower. Final round. Fight.
This is worth it for a different reason. Not because it gets me the life lead. And in fact, in some ways it can be considered dangerous because it puts Abigail too close to having the trigger. But technically that's what you want. You want Abigail players to have to use their V-trigger earlier so that you can't worry too much. Even this, for example. Now I have an opponent with no meter, no life lead, no V-trigger. So my strengths come into play now. Oh, I remembered to hit the right button. I am not as rusty as I thought. If you play fighting games for long enough and you really like your character, and spend some real time learning the ins and outs of what they actually do, it's worth it in the end, just for how good it feels to be able to do the thing you intended to do. In this case, it's because I must do the combo you just saw differently. I have to hit a different button, depending on whether or not she is in the V-trigger state. And I expected, because I was rusty, that I would not do that. In general, I tend to, after coming back from a long time not playing, just do the same one both ways. But I think it's probably that I had enough time to think about it this time. It is true that I'm nowhere near as stressed as I normally am. But mostly it's because, as I've said, I find fighting many other players unpleasant because they're unnerving by how much they move away from you and try not to engage. But not everyone is doing that because they don't want to engage with you, which is probably about to be demonstrated. I'm not gonna... I think I've told Omni before, don't try to play up in my face just because I don't like dealing with this. I do have to learn to deal with it, and I've mostly learned to deal with it.
Boom! That's how you start the fight and finish it quickly.
Round one. Fight.
So keeping this distance, making me think of other ways to trick my way in, causing other trouble, those are all things I'm okay with right now. Because it makes me work on my spacing, it makes me work on a bunch of things. Oh, that's useful. I'm counting that as a buff for me from now on. Yep, that is a buff for me, and me alone. Well, no, you can let me know if that's a buff for you too, all you Chun-Li players out there who I never see. I deserve that, and you deserve that. That was a moment of hesitation to realize, is Omni gonna block? And I kinda had to sense it out. And Omni totally sensed that I was thinking about Hadouken. And then I stopped thinking, well, Kikoken, and stopped thinking about it. And no, there we go. Okay. Well, I know that I'm going to have to work on my, let's call it invisibility, next week. But this week is not this week is not next week. I explicitly gave the stream the title it has, heart on my sleeve, because I have no intention of trying to work through that today. It's just too much work. Perfect spacing by me once again. Did not think that was going to work out that way, but I think I would have died had I actually gone for what I was planning to do.
Final round. Fight.
It's so hard to do that with Lara. But from the other side, that's a lot of work for Omni as well. There's a lot of learning exactly which characters will be attackable after an anti-air like Light Punch or something. Those slides are just fake. I'm just doing nothing. That's also fake. It never actually works. I'm not really sure. That's normally the moment where it's a good idea to go for super, because you can see her punch incoming, but it's kind of hard to remember, and like I said, sometimes I can just keep the opponent's mind off of whatever it is that they need to do long enough to get away with things like that. But I probably would have died to super, and I probably shouldn't have done that then. I get to say that a lot today. More perfect spacing. Would you believe I've been setting up that specific spinning bird kick for like so much of this round? That was telegraphed for sure. I should know better, because again, I'm not invisible enough. I'm just telegraphing things. Your opponent can get a sense of what mind state you're in, and if they're relatively experienced with the game, they'll be able to translate that mind state into the next thing you're likely to actually do. You can confuse them by not doing the thing you expect them, or trying to change your mind state while you're blocking. That's one of my best tricks. Or while you're dashing. I've never been really keen on trying to explain that to people before, because I could never figure out a way to tell people this is what you do so that they can actually make something out of it. But that's probably the best one. Change your mind state halfway through your wake up, halfway through your dash, halfway through blocking your opponent's stuff, or all through your long normals. That one was just actually me missing the execution on what I was trying to do, for example. I think I would have gotten away with it if it had been, in fact, the... Here's another moment where you can do it.
Final round. Fight.
The problem with this, from characters like Chun-Li who have too many moves, is that it makes you forget moves you've got. Like, I just ended up using the forward heavy kick again, because everything else I was doing made me forget that I had it. Oof. Not a punish I remember seeing. Would not have been ready for that one either way. Why didn't I just confirm that? Does this work? No. There are certain characters who do certain things that Chun-Li actually goes completely through, and I feel like that was something that came up at some point. but I don't remember if it was for her super. I don't think it was. Oh, we're already getting close to the end of stream. But, as I mentioned, we'll have a lot of stuff tomorrow. And tonight, the lounge will probably stay open, though you shouldn't necessarily look for me because I'm probably leaving it. I'm still not confirming correctly. Alright, so we know that this person, despite their 1 bar, is actually usually a decent connection. It might be a little hard to read. And honestly, they're strong enough that I'm not necessarily expecting to win, but I expect it to be fun because as far as I remember, they also don't just back off to create situations, they're just someone who thinks fast enough that you have to worry about it. And I haven't actually been matched in thinking speed other than at tournaments long ago for a while, so this is likely to be our relatively explosive final match of the night, or rather of the stream. I will be leaving this lounge. I have no idea who will end up being the host of it. It might close up entirely because everyone else is also headed out. But you can join us tomorrow for most likely Tuesday Melt. Okay, yep. Okay, yep, too fast. So I have to use the other method. When you're facing someone this fast, they're definitely going to be trying to get their spacings right so that you can't hurt them. But you can do stuff about that as well, because if they spend so much time doing that, they have to be really stressed in the mid-range about what exactly their spacings are. That, for example, I've seen them do that enough on this stream to not be worried about what just happened. That was not necessarily me messing up something, that's them knowing where to do that from. That was a deep kick. I was expecting to be blocking that move already. Okay, so I've watched this person fight enough times to know what I really should be doing here, but I can't necessarily do it. It's too high within the realm of difficult chili stuff. And they're not necessarily running away, but they're creating a space that I can't enter. So if I can't enter the space, I have to treat them more like I'm fighting a Dalsim player. You can punch out of it, okay. That is not necessarily a buff then. And you can hit me out of that way. I should have known that was going to happen. Nope, dropped it. So, I can't say that I was expecting to enjoy playing their Ryu, because the optimal thing for me to do in this matchup is nothing. You can usually see it. I'm not really feeling the feeling I normally get when I'm thinking my opponent just won't engage with me, or my opponent's just trying to get out of the way entirely. They're trying to create a situation that is disadvantageous to me in a different way than I'm usually talking about when I say this. But here, for example, I've won the match, right? And that's my optimal scenario right now. I shouldn't do much of anything. I didn't have enough meter for what I needed to do there. Ooh, forgot that worked that way. But I have enough control of the neutral. That I'm not actually worried about it. So, learning to fight K5 Nat for me is a matter of minimizing my actual action set. Because I have better ranges, I have better spaces, I can control more things, but knowing exactly when to throw Kikoken, which I hate doing, when to dash, when to hit something else, etc., etc. All that is like too much work for me sometimes. And they are quickly realizing that they actually do have to run from me. So I think I'm basically done. Because there is a point you can tell where it's, I'm not only going to do this, I'm actually running from you now. That can miss at that range. Nah, I'm fine. I can live. Minimize the damage. So they're good at zoning, but it's not like a thing I really care to do today. So I'm kind of upset that I won that. But it's only one round, and I do have to do one more, so I should still give it my all, but well, at least I got a life lead enough that I'm no longer worried about winning this by the way I was winning it before. And their thinking speed means they're not going to really miss any punishes or anything. But yeah, see, gotta run. So, it's fine. I don't think this is a person I'm gonna end up enjoying fighting in the long term, but I think it's someone that I could deal with in a tournament, even if only because certain people, when you fight them on stream, they'll not like the way you're making them look when you're fighting them, and change their style. When you meet players like that, it's the reason why a lot of players who I dislike fighting don't even go to tournaments. But, as I said, I'm about to be done for now. The Wolf is probably going to take this final match, but it's not going to be streamed. We will be possibly having EU streams at around 7:30 PM. I don't actually know what that time zone is, but there's some timing around 12:30 Eastern, I think, that we will be getting more stuff. So, you can look out for those, but those will be inconsistent, whereas our goal is to make the others as consistent as possible. That said, this has been Rillian for Team 2MK. Join us tomorrow for Melty Tuesday, and after that for Wednesday Night in Birth. Thursday is probably some King of Fighters thing. But for now, sorry to cut you off as this match is starting, but we're done for the night. Good night, everyone.